if you think I give a rave review to every bike I ride, regardless, then you're really going to want to watch this one. My name's Kesteven. I've been a professional bike and kit tester for nearly 25 years. And today, the bike I'm riding is the Canyon Lux Trail CF8. So the Lux Trail is exactly what it sounds like. A trail version of Canyon's Lux XC bike. So, same back end, same 210 by 55mm extra long shock, but this time leveraged out to 110mm travel, but still with flex stay suspension. But the front end is totally different. So, much longer. This large has a 480mm reach. Used to be 450. And head angle is slacker. It's 67.5. Partly because it's running a 120mm fork now, not a 100. And then the seat angle is 74.5. And it's kind of the seat and seat tube that are the real breaker in terms of fit on this bike. So 508mm long, I can only just get this 125mm reverb axis post down low enough for my 745mm BB to seat height measurement. And that is potentially more of a problem because obviously, unless you're lucky enough to be in one of the Canyon demo centres or the world opens up enough to do demo rides again, you're buying essentially blind online. But there's been a lot of interest in this bike from you guys in comments just because it's remarkable value. Because you're getting a full SRAM AXS wireless spec, the GX carbon cranks, reverb dropper for just 5149, and that wireless dropper is a real rare beast. A lot of people are going for the gears, very few are including the seat post. It's a seriously expensive bit of kit, and the goodness doesn't stop there. You've got DC Swiss XRC 1501 carbon rimmed 30mm internal wheels. You've got triple compound Maxxis Recon Max Terra up front, and a 2.35 Maxxis Exo dual compound 235 on the rear. So a really good component spec. The only thing it's a bit workaday are the race face 760mm 10mm rise bars, which are alloy, and the 60mm Canyon stem. They're fine, but they just add a bit of weight over carbon versions. Well, the bar does, obviously. And then you've got RockShox Sid Select Plus fork and the Deluxe rear shock, which both get a remote twist lock lockout there, which is perfect for long road climbs or anywhere you want a fully rigid bike. And this is the obligatory, it's not too shabby on the road either shot. And you can see you've got some really nice frame details on you. You've got this ultra minimalist lightweight chain keeper there. You've got room for 2 full-size bottles on all the frame sizes. The linkage here is really neatly done of this overlap and the way it's smoothed into this
U-yoke on the back, and then these super short linkages there. Nice big pivots. It's actually an 8mm holding the rear of the shock in. You've got a RockShox Deluxe Ultimate shock, so top end inline trail shock, and then the remote control cable routing through there is really, really neat. Then you come up the front, you've got this Acros headset with these little wings on it to stop there being an issue if the bar comes right round. And you've got this low rise handlebar set low, you've got the stem flipped, that stops the controllers slapping into that top tube. And of course it's a flex stay rear suspension system, so there's no pivots at all in this back end. That's the and that's the part that's shared with the Lux Trail bike. It's just you're getting 110mm travel now out of essentially the same stroke shock. And then on this spec you've got full AXS transmission, Eagle 1052 cassette, GX carbon crank with a 34 tooth chainring, and then you've got this AXS reverb dropper post, which super rare piece of spec. And then up front obviously you've got the remote control for the gears there, for the reverb there, and then this twist lock remote release grip set up here. The only downside of that is that you get an outer collar on the grips, so if you don't like metal under your hand there, you'll have to try and bodge a solution to that. And then down on the fork you can see how that twist grip operates the charger damper on there, but because it's the Select Plus, it's not the Ultimate fork, it is a simpler damper on the fork. And those fast rolling Maxxis tyres and plenty of volume in mean it's great for just getting out there in big wide open landscapes, and also there's enough tyre volume to start shrugging off rocks and rough trails like this. And also that long reach, that 1200mm wheelbase and that more relaxed head angle makes it a lot more stable at speed. So even when playing about on the ice and snow, it feels nice and secure and safe. Hey? No. And nice big tyres at 20 psi. Great for spreading the load on ice as well. Woo-hoo-hoo. Oh, big one coming up. Yes! Oh, like Ryan just said, I'm 50, he's 44, and we're still loving playing on puddles. Oh, whoa! Oh, this is a long one. Breathe steadily, breathe steadily. Yes! Unfortunately, the major problem with this Lux Trail is that the suspension doesn't really work, because the shock is at such a low leverage, basically 2-to-1 with that 55mm stroke and 110mm travel. It's super stiff to get moving, especially with that flex stay on it. And it just feels exactly like German suspension bikes from years ago, when you'd never feel the suspension working in terms of much of a benefit, but you'd still have blown through all the travel by the end of the ride. And I've tried all sorts to fix that. I put volume spacers in it to make it more progressive. That just meant I didn't get full travel with 2 in, but with 1 in it was still blowing through. And it just doesn't even feel good by XC standards, to be honest. It's just far too stiff and unyielding. And then you've got to remember that a huge amount of the German riding scene, because obviously Canyon's a German brand, is smashing out mega kilometres primarily on fire roads or relatively simple mountain single track. But it definitely
doesn't feel massively smooth in terms of the suspension. You know, several times loads of times I've kind of pressed the hop lock remote thinking that I've somehow locked it out because it's feeling that firm, even when I've dropped the pressures quite substantially. So the only kind of traction and control benefits you're getting are really from just running these big tyres at low pressure. And considering how well they roll when you're just freewheeling, it doesn't feel as quick when it's under power either. So while it's definitely stiffer than the Neuron, it's losing noticeable amounts of power when you're pedaling as well. And I know when Pink Bike did their efficiency test on this bike, it didn't score that well. Although the numbers and length and travel might suggest it's a downcountry bike, I definitely still characterise it as a cross-country bike in the same way they do. Just a longer, safer, more sure-footed cross-country bike, but on climbs like this, or otherwise that quite rearward seat position, just popping the front end up really easily. So it's, if you've got used to a steep seat angle, it's back to the old school shuffle your starfish onto the nose of the saddle again to get that traction. And while the 60mm stem and the 760mm bar on a 67.5 degree head angle are absolutely fine, when you stick them at the end of a 480mm, you've got a really stretched out, kind of vague situation with the steering. So while it's super stable in a straight line, it really struggles around tighter stuff. It's really hard to get it moving around with your hips as well. And then you're not really getting much in the suspension either. It's a proper handful. I mean, the good news is you can fit a 40mm stem, slam the saddle right forward, and that makes it a lot more agile, kind of responsive and new school, but also means it twitches around all over the place on climbs, which not everyone will love. So as you can see, it is managing this, but if you go back and watch that Spectral video, or even I think I shot the YT Izzo down here, you know, they definitely feel like they're less on edge. Just that short dropper post, I'm now aware of that, up between my legs. The fact I've basically got road brakes, even with a 180mm rotor, is kind of quite apparent. Afternoon.
Enjoy your day.
Thanks you very much, you too. Well, at the end of the day, I'm a lot happier doing this on a bike with a reasonable head angle and plenty of reach to get behind than I would be on the full race Lux. And you've got to remember that according to Canyon, this is only kind of bike category 3, which I think is kind of up to 60 centimetre drops and jumps occasionally. But already I'm starting to get more kind of arm pump, and that general stiffness of suspension is also quite fatiguing on longer rides. So you're playing off that natural suspension efficiency with a slightly more bruising, less compliant character to other bikes in the category. So in summary, while it's amazing value in terms of the AXS wireless kit and the DT Swiss carbon wheels, this Canyon Lux Trail ultimately is exactly what it is. A longer front end stuck on quite an outdated cross-country back end. And while you can sort the handling with a different stem and slamming that seat forward, it's a lot trickier to try and get anything meaningful in terms of control out of that suspension movement. And compared to the other bikes in the range, I just can't help thinking that this is a stopgap while Canyon come up with a proper answer to the downcountry question. And that's something I'm really excited to see. But then for high-speed marathon hauling in its home market, I can see why this Lux could be really, really popular. But for mixing it up in the woods around Yorkshire, not so much.
So there we go, Canyon Lux Trail CF8, a bike that on paper looks potentially great, certainly fantastic value in terms of componentry and some really, really smart frame features as well. But ultimately, the kind of proportions of the frame and the suspension itself really creating some quite serious issues, unless you're kind of a traditional old school German marathon rider. But, you know, they're pitching it as a downcountry bike and it certainly isn't that. But regardless, thanks very much to Canyon for sending me the bike in for test. I've ridden it a ton, trying to get a sweet spot out of it, and I've kind of got there with the handling. And if you've got one and you want to know how best to work the suspension, then hit me up in the comments. But otherwise, thanks to Zero Cycling UK for sponsoring the channel. Thanks to PTs and Crud as well. Thanks to my Patreon supporters who pledge on a monthly basis and they get exclusive, extended and behind-the-scenes ad-free edits as a thank you for helping the channel grow. And thanks to you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. It's certainly been a beautiful day out here in Yorkshire, up above Pateley Bridge. And please click for notifications, subscribe if you haven't already, and give this video a thumbs up. And obviously, check out all the other Canyon videos I've got and videos of the competing bikes in this category. Bikes like the older Trek Top Fuel, like the Santa Cruz Blur I've reviewed recently, and hopefully I'll have a lot more comparative bikes coming up in the near future. So, but for now, I've been Guy Kesteven on Guy Kest TV, talking about the Canyon Lux Trail CF8.